What's up, everybody? Hello. Welcome to the Hustling Sideways podcast. I'm Alan Halas. I'm a music writer.
And I'm Jim Lev. I'm a keynote and motivational speaker.
And this is the Hustling Sideways podcast when we don't have guests on, even though we've had a
lot of guests. Yeah.
Guests. Yeah, a lot of guests at this point.
We've had many into the triple figures.
Yes, into the triple digits now. When we don't have guests on the show, we are talking about the different things that we go through as side hustlers, as people with passion projects, things that we just go through in our businesses.
Yeah,
and we have a different topic every time, and we always make it up on the fly.
We do, and we chose something that Alan and I both suck at, so that's why I'm like, well, at least I do.
I'm bad at this.
Okay, good. I didn't want to speak for both of us if that wasn't true, but we're going to talk about the art of negotiation / setting, the value for yourself of what it is.
Yeah.
Do you want to start because you came up with this?
Yeah, totally. I got this one. So negotiate.
Do you got it though?
Well, I don't got it, but I have it. I have a story about it for sure.
Right. There you go.
Negotiating is something that I am notoriously bad at, and it has always been something like when I was early on into running, breaking, and entering. That just wasn't my thing. Mm-hmm. And like even before that, I guess even when I was like freelancing, shooting videos for weddings and stuff, the first wedding video that I did was for $200.
I remember.
And somebody who I know who actually works in weddings was like the minimum for a wedding video is like $800.
Literally like
at the
triple
time.
That. Yeah.
And now it's probably into at least
it's
1,000.
way more than that.
Yeah. So I got burned on that.
No idea. Yeah.
And then
those people were thrilled to get $200.
Yeah. But then like running, breaking, and entering too, we'll have people that will ask us for like sponsored posts sometimes. Mm-hmm. And we don't do like artist sponsored posts, but like if a brand wants to do a sponsored post, we'll do that.
Yeah.
And I have the rate that I set, and they will always come back to me and say, well, what if you did this? And I, for a long time, was like, yeah, sure. You know what I mean? Like 30, $40, whatever instead. That had to change.
Mm-hmm.
Once I realized that like I'm not valuing myself at all. You know what I mean?
That's a good realization to have too.
Yeah, and like one of the things I definitely learned in recent years is that not only do you value like the work you put in, but like all of the extracurricular things that go into it too.
No doubt. Yeah.
So like shooting a video.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I would just value that myself for those 4 hours that I booked myself. It didn't matter if that wedding was an hour and a half away, and I had to drive 90 minutes there and 90 minutes back. It was 3 hours of unpaid work, right? So I didn't value those sorts of things. And now you have to like take that in and kind of like you have to kind of be able to go back and forth a little bit with somebody. And I think if you have a side hustle and you're confident in your side hustle and you're confident that you're talented, you totally start high.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you gotta overvalue yourself, and maybe somebody's gonna bite on it.
Unless they give you, it's like a salary.
Yeah.
Like don't pigeonhole yourself. Like, what do you expect to earn? And name a number, and then they had a number that was 20 grand more than that in mind. Like, be like, what do you feel is the value for this position? There's ways to do that. Like to not put yourself already at a disadvantage.
So notoriously, I would do that for stuff though, where I would just be like, I would undervalue what I was doing, thinking that I'm giving them a deal.
Yeah.
But then, really, I just get the short end of the stick because I wasn't getting compensated what I needed to, right?
Yeah.
So that is a process that I'm still always constantly learning at.
Likewise.
So.
Yeah, and I've had the same, obviously my realm is speaking with schools and conferences about their budgets. And the funny disadvantage I have is that it's not my main source of income. Mm-hmm. So for me, I'm always like, I have a price that I've have tested the market with, have spoken to other speakers, or
you've conversed with other speakers,
and have set up what I feel is a fair price.
Sure.
I always ask, is this reasonable based on your budget? Because I never got into this to like make money. I didn't. That's a great consequence. Like, awesome, but like I rarely am saying no. And I'm like, I feel like I'm putting this out there to people, but I definitely have something of value that I'm going to bring. Now, I've had times where someone's been like $1,000 off, like, which is like significant.
Under?
Yes. And I'm like, I really want to work with you. And I have said no before, just so we're all clear. Like if something's like in another state and it's a tiny little stipend.
We did a whole bonus video about saying no. Yeah.
We did.
But
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cue that one up. But what I normally say, because I believe in what I do and I want to do it more often.
Right.
And, is there's more things that could be of value. So for example, I just had this a couple weeks ago where a school was pretty far under what I was asking for. But I asked if they can take a video of me being there, so I have some footage, and then if they can introduce me to 5 schools in their district as saying that this is someone, and then bring me back.
Yeah.
At some point. So like 3 things that if I can get a direct intro from principal to a principal, that usually works out. So I thought of that a couple years ago, where I was like, I do I have value or do I not? You know, like if I'm going to keep going under what I want, and usually I would say 8 times out of 10 I get what I'm asking for.
Yeah.
But when I don't, I have to come up with ways to do it, and that took me a long time to recognize any kind of value, and it's hard. It's hard to be like, no, I'm worth more than that. Like, that's uncomfortable. Like what feels to be borderline selfish thing to say,
right?
But it's not. Like you are delivering something that's a value. They want you to be there, and it took me a long time to like grasp that.
Yeah.
And now that I have, especially when I get introduced like via a student that's seen me or something like that, I usually have some leverage. But
sure,
if it's a random one, and they just have a budget and there's nothing they could do about it, you know, it is what it is. But a lot of people now, like the market I'm in, folks are not like I'm not often way over what they're asking for.
Right.
Like I've kind of a better understanding. Like if a church is reaching out to me, I probably not as much as it would be, but if a big public school is reaching out, they have a budget, you know, and I can ask. And now I'm not saying that I vary my price. I make exceptions and put together a package based on those exceptions. That's really what it is. Like I'm always worth what I think, and the things I end up asking for, if it's not up to snuff, if you will, what in my head equals what I would have gotten. So like exposure to 5 schools from the principal is enormous. If one of those schools says yes, like that,
you've doubled your income on that.
You just come up with ways. Now, I wouldn't say I've ever like negotiated necessarily back and forth. I have requests that they have to meet, you know, or else we're probably not going to work together. Which is fine.
Asking for that added value stuff is negotiating, right? To be like,
I'll
do this if you do this. Yeah,
right. But we're never doing like 7 emails back and forth of you know what I mean? It's mostly just like, if you can't do this, you know, here you go. Yeah. And never have I had a school respond or a conference respond and say, no, we can't do those things. Like, if they want you, they'll find a way to get you. But I'm not like, you know, like naive to think that like every school has the same budget or every conference has the same budget. You just work with what you got. But I know where value lies, and I can at least go off of that. And then I deliver, and hopefully it goes well. And then they call me back, you know, a couple, and then they know like what I want. So I'm always like, hey, I'm making an exception here. You know, like if I do that, I wouldn't, you know, and then I'm like, here's package. Or another example, if 2 schools in the same district have reached out, I'm like, well, what if I do you in the morning, go to your school in the afternoon? It's a package deal. I'll offer less. I'll be like, here's this off. Here's what you get. I've done that many times, and it's a very good selling point. You can kind of start at one place. I had one time where the schools were across the street, so I like ran across the street. They gave me like a half hour window. You
should have did that at the end of the one keynote. Be like, I'm going over to these guys.
I basically did, and I actually grabbed my stuff. I didn't have that much time. Like I had to use the restroom, and then I had to go. Yeah, and I had like a half hour built in. But by the time I got there, students were already in. So I was like running. I'm like, all right, I'm back. Like
I just like the idea of like the first school all lining up and watching you run out the door to run into the second one.
But anyway, that's I learned you know, kind of early on to like know what that value is and stick to it. Yeah. But at the same time, like I want to give my talk. Like I want to, and I don't want anything to really stop me from doing that. But you have to stick with what's your value, and you are valuable. If you have something you're good at, that means you're valuable. And people want you to come there, figure out what that is, and then what your exceptions to that rule are. But don't go below that. Right. Like I think you should really stick with something, because at some point your value decreases as you allow it to. Right.
Yeah. If you keep really giving up concessions, absolutely. Yeah. And like I think it's a confidence thing when it comes to a side hustle. Totally. The more you realize that you're talented, the more that you realize that you're providing something of value, the more like confident you feel in that.
100%.
I think that's when you become a better negotiator, because you have the conviction of being like,
and there's no nervousness around that. It's just like here's what I need. You know?
Once you're confident in saying like, no, I'm gonna give you something that is of a really good value. That's right. Yeah. So like you gotta kind of just stand on your own a little bit too about it, and be like, okay, this is the prices, and you know,
and it's okay to be like, take it or leave it. You know?
Totally.
And granted, if you want to get yourself out there for the first time, like you're gonna do some free things. Like,
you're gonna you're gonna have to happen.
But when you get more and more, it's okay to stick to your guns, if you will. And
the more I think you realize that like there are other sources of income. Let's say if it's just like if you have one school that can't make a particular Friday work, let's say, you know that there's 20 other schools that maybe could, right? Like I know that if, you know, one person doesn't want to do a sponsored post for the price that we set, there's 10 other companies that might. Yeah. So like things like that happen. Like you got to know that there's options out there too, but it comes down to confidence. And it comes down to, I think, having the wisdom to be like, and like we are both rooted in like reality too, right? You're not offering $20,000 to go speak at a school.
It's a small stipend based off of what you think speakers get. You know,
exactly.
But it's fair and based off of actual things. Like I asked 10 speaker friends, started taking the median of those.
And then you're in that range.
And that's where I put it. And now that I've grown and gotten better, frankly, it's gone up.
Yeah.
It
totally.
should, right? That's what happens. So anyway, enough out of me. Go ahead.
But let us know, how you negotiate, how comfortable you are with negotiating, especially if you're first starting out.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of things that we love to hear about. So reply in the comments or wherever you're watching this, just text us.
When I reply in the comments, I go like that.
I believe that as you click the button. Yep.
That's how I space it.
So in the meantime, we are the Hustling Sideways podcast. You can get this show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us. We are on YouTube. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're on LinkedIn. We are on Facebook and Twitter as well. All of those places. If you want to be a guest and join us here in this room or virtually, you can do that over at hustlingsideways@gmail.com, or you can click the link that is in our Instagram bio as well.
That's right.
We are out of here, and Jim,
keep on hustling.
We'll see you next week.
Peace.